Good morning. It's Dr. John Bennett from NeurosurgicalTV in Miami Beach. We have the extreme pleasure of having Andrew Wilner, MD, an old friend who's been doing these webcasts for a while now. He does regular. Used to be Google Hangouts. I'm not sure if he's doing Zoom for Medscape in the area of neurology, and he'll talk about that. And Andrew's come out with another book about Locum Tenens. We'll talk about that and his other projects. Welcome, Andrew.
Oh, thanks, John. It's nice to have the opportunity to talk to you again.
Okay, we are on Neurosurgical TV, by the way, on the front page, and we're also on Facebook Live, which can lead to some interesting possibilities in the future. So, Andrew, Locum Tenens. I did some of that, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But why don't you tell us about your book and your take on the subject?
Well, you know, I didn't really think that much of it until there was all this talk about burnout and stuff like that. And then I thought, you know, I've worked locum tenens off and on since 1982. After my internship, I took a job as a locum tenens doc in an ER so I could write a book. And not only did I have time to write the book and make money, but I also discovered during that ER year that I liked the neurology patients. And because of that locum tenens year, I ended up a neurologist instead of an internist. So I was looking for another book to write, and I thought, you know, when you're a writer, it's like, well, what do I know something about that I could write about? And I thought, you know, I've been doing locum tenens all over the country. Yeah, I ought to write about that. So the first thing you do is look, are there any books on it? None. There wasn't one full-length book. And, you know, it's hard because there aren't any locum tenens societies. There's no central place where locum tenens physicians get together. So I researched it, and it looked like the market for the book maybe wasn't big enough really to warrant, you know, spending 3 years writing a book on it in my spare time. But as you and I know, you just kind of do things because you have a passion for them and you want to do them. And I said, well, this is an important book. I've learned a lot. And the last chapter of the book, I interviewed 16 other locum tenens docs. And I said, what was your best experience? What was your worst experience? What advice would you give to somebody who's going to try locum tenens? So that chapter has fantastic stories. And then the rest of the book is really a how-to guide. How do you find an agent? How do you negotiate a contract? How do you get paid? What about licensing and credentialing and DEA? What about travel? What about taxes? You know, all the real nuts and bolts. Being a self-employed individual. You know, all of a sudden, life is different when you're your own boss. And for me, that was the beauty. I spent 10 years going back and forth to the Philippines. And because I was able to work locum tenens anywhere from sort of 5 to 8 months a year, save enough money, and then go travel. Go to the Philippines. I'd scuba dive, right? I started making underwater films. And that, by the way, we've both advanced, I think, in this virtual world. I see you have a virtual background there for Neurosurgical TV, which I'm really impressed with, by the way. I think that Neurosurgical TV has really taken off thanks to your perseverance, and it's great. And then the background behind me, that's my little house in the Philippines.
And that's a real background, right?
It's a real background, and that's where I am right now. It's I'm in the Philippines. I'm on paternity leave for a few months from my job, so we're playing with the baby. And my wife's family is from the Philippines. That's the other thing that happens when you have some free time.
Right.
End up getting married.
Right.
And so locum tenens gave me a lot of freedom. And also an opportunity. You know, a lot of doctors, they really have their nose to the grindstone. You know, you get up at 6 in the morning, you're at the office by 7:30, you're there till 6:30, you get home, you eat, you shower, you read the paper or check the internet, and it just goes on and on and on. And you don't really see what the rest of the world is doing. And with locums, you can just say, okay, I'll do that for 6 months and I'll stop.
Hmm.
And people say, oh, you can't do that. Well, what about your mortgage and this? It's like, well, you just like the financial advisors would tell you, you make sure you have a little cash, right? So you can
Hmm.
cover 3 to 6 months of your living without working. And right now, there's never been more jobs available for locum tenens. If you want a locum tenens job, there's one for you. It doesn't matter if you're a psychiatrist, an orthopedist, an OBGYN family practice. They're 95%. I know these statistics from researching the book. 95% of hospitals in the U.S. are using locum tenens docs.
So there's more now than before, would you say, in the last 10 years?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And
Becoming more of a medical locum tenens society, or
right. Well, a lot of, I would say, unfortunate things have happened that have kind of given birth to this, this new industry where people kind of have these, the gig economy, right? With Uber and Lyft. Well, now physicians are part of the gig economy because up until 2016, more than half of physicians owned their own practice.
okay.
And did you own your own practice
No, I
when
did
you
not.
were,
No, ER,
but
ER.
ER. Okay. So, but a lot of guys, when I grew up, when you grew up, that was kind of the model, right? If you were an internist, you'd own your own practice, you'd buy the building. Well, those guys aren't mobile, right? I mean,
Right,
you own the building, you've got staff, you're in your community, you're not going anywhere. You're not going to be doing locum tenens in Alaska or
right,
Hawaii or,
right.
the Ozarks. But as of 2016, more than half of physicians are employed.
Hmm.
Well, if you're an
Oh,
employee, it's like, hey, I'm done. I don't like you anymore. You're giving me a hard time. I'll go work across the street. I'll
right,
go to California and start surfing and work in the ER there. I
right.
don't need to be here anymore. So the whole demographics of the industry have changed. I mean, I have a great job right now. In fact, locum tenens helped me find a permanent job.
Okay.
I was working locums at the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, and I got married, and we're thinking about having a baby. So I'm thinking, maybe I don't want to be moving around so much. Let me
Okay.
see if I can find a regular job.
Right. And that's
But
why.
I couldn't.
Okay.
So I just kept looking and looking and looking. So for 2 years, I looked and I interviewed all over the country. And there were
Wow.
several jobs that were not bad. There
Hmm.
was a Kaiser job in Portland, Oregon that wasn't bad. There was a university job in Connecticut.
And you were able to work there before you decided, right?
Yeah. But
Okay.
then these other jobs, I just said, you know what? This isn't the permanent job I want. So I'm not going to take it
Right.
because I had this great locums job to fall back on.
Right.
So while I was working locums, I would interview and say, nah, I'm not going to do that. Whereas if I didn't have this great locums job, I probably would have took these permanent jobs and I would have been unhappy.
Hmm.
So locums allowed me to just look at my leisure until finally I found a job where they let me work 7 on, 7 off,
Hmm.
which is really important to me. And it's an academic job, so I get to teach residents, so it's exciting.
Wow.
And it's like, hey, this is a good job for me. And so they offered me a package, and I said no.
Okay.
And I was willing to
Must
walk
have been
away.
surprising for them.
Right. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. That's not what we talked about. And they go,
Right.
oh, we'll see
Okay.
what we can do. And they
Okay.
came back with a better offer. So
Okay.
locums gave me
Leverage.
leverage
Okay.
and so it was really, I think that there are physicians who are stuck. And I think, they want to be a hospital administrator or an IT person or open a restaurant. It's like before you make that jump to the non-clinical career, which if you go on the internet is, in fact, I interviewed a woman who's sort of a guru for non-clinical careers. She's a physician and she switched to a non-clinical career. She's a coach. The article's up on Medscape now, actually. It got 103 comments so far.
Wow.
I mean, that is, usually we get 4.
Okay.
And I mean, there's just huge interest. But before you do that, check out Locum Tenens because it's a way to find a nice locums job. It's perfect for ER. I mean, ER is basically Locum Tenens, right? I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, maybe you work in the same spot for 30 years, but if you wanted to, you just say, hey, that's my last shift. I'm going to go work, at another place, and nobody will blink, right? I mean, that's what ER docs do, unless you're in some tight group, but it's more of a staffing thing now, ER docs, right? Interchangeable.
Well, I'll add my own physician story to Locum Tenens lore. Uh, when I was a resident, that was my first exposure to Locum Tenens. And I loved it because as a resident, you work hard, but also when you have days off, you want to make money. So I was able to do ER locums, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, going into a new atmosphere. And really, it's the first time it exposed me to the business aspects of medicine, because when you're a resident, you have no idea where your paycheck come from or what you do. When you do locums, I was first exposed to the negotiation part of it that you mentioned, where they would say, Dr. Bennett, can you work here in Cordeal? Um, and they would say, we'd pay you X amount of dollars. And sometimes I would say no, and they would come back with a better offer. No, we'll pay you more to work there. So it brings into the business aspect of medicine.
Right. When you're a physician, and somebody says, this is what I offer you, you assume that's their best offer, right? Yeah. I mean, I think physicians just aren't clued in. In fact, my contract's coming up at my permanent position, and I'm trying to think, maybe I should ask for more than I really want, just because, that's their job, is to negotiate. Physicians don't think that way. So chapter 4 of my book is Locum Tenens for newly graduated residents and fellows. Why they might want to do it. Check out a new practice, travel. Chapter 5 is mid-career guys, want to make extra money. And chapter 6 is late career. Guys like you and me, but busy, but they don't want to quit, but they don't want to be so busy. And there's a lot of guys like that where the practice they're in is demanding 60 hours a week and on call, but it doesn't give an option saying, oh, I'll work 40 hours a week and take less call. That option isn't always there. Or if they give it to you, it's kind of demeaning. It's like a lower status, and it's really not appealing. Whereas locums say, okay, I'll work 6 months a year and I'll spend the winter in Florida, see my grandkids. And it's great. Nobody cares. Just do what you want to do. You can work 10 more years, extend your, clinical identity as a physician that way, if you want.
Well, one thing I loved about locums was in ER, you can do long shifts, 60-hour shifts. Now, of course, that sounds like a lot, but when you're in a small hospital in an ER, you're really not that busy normally. So that most of the time I would have a full night's sleep, maybe get up in the morning and do rounds, whatever. But it was a restful weekend. For 60-hour pay. So it was, but the flip side is that the companies, like one ER in Cordeal, Georgia, they asked me, Dr. Bennett, do you want to cover the 60 hours? And I was thinking that, oh, it'll be another easy 60 hours. But Andrew, it was not. I was busy the whole time. I got an hour or two nap in there somewhere, but so the downside, you got to be careful sometimes in ER when you take a locums, because you could get smashed if you take a long shift.
Right, and that's true. I think with a lot of locums jobs, there's a reason they have that opening, right? If it was the best job in the world, they'd have some permanent guy there. Right. So I think you always have to go in. Whenever I take a locums position, it's like, I know this isn't going to be the best situation. Right. But very often, I don't know, it may be because of my training, but usually I find it's much better than I was expecting. And it's certainly manageable. I've never had a locums position where I thought, oh, how am I ever going to get through this? The stuff you and I did in residency is a lot worse than what they expect of you these days as an attending.
One of the benefits I liked was seeing the variety and seeing a different patient population that was out of my norm. I enjoyed the novelty of it. I was first exposed to my first case of supraventricular tachycardia in a kid is 12 years old. And I would not normally see that, but I was able to handle it by myself in an ER. So as a young physician, it kind of built my confidence a little bit to go into another area. Although I ended up staying in ER, but to me at the time it was new, and that really made me enjoy. I began to like ER after doing some of those locum shifts because
There
it
you go.
exposed me to more what an ER physician does. I don't know
Yeah,
if it
that's like,
applies to other areas. Does that apply to other areas, you think?
oh, absolutely. The job that I have now is clinical. I make rounds at the hospital, and it's teaching. I teach the residents at the University of Tennessee. But I had two locums jobs that were like that, where it wasn't just me making rounds by myself. It's like I talk to myself all day. Should I do this? Should I do that? If you have a student or a resident, all of a sudden, everything is much more interesting. You
Wow, that's
know,
a big plus. Doing teaching as a locums, I wasn't familiar with that.
I didn't think it was possible. I had one job at Mayo Clinic and one at University of Minnesota, and they were both great.
Wow, that Mayo must look good on your resume. I mean, that name is gold.
And frankly, they do a pretty good job there. I was
In
very
Arizona,
happy with my
is that
colleagues.
where you're at in Mayo?
Yeah, I was in Arizona. Yeah.
Okay.
And I was there a year and a half. I did everything there: clinic, stroke attending, consults on the wards. And it's a well-run hospital. It's like, how come every hospital can't be run? You know, it's organized. Stuff doesn't get lost. People show up when you know what I mean. It's just
Right.
all the things that happen that aren't supposed to happen. Of course, they're human, but people are trained. They know what they're supposed to do, and the level of expectation. It's not like good enough for government work. It's like the level of expectation is high. You're supposed to perform. Everybody knows that, and it's a nice experience. I would encourage. It's a little stiff, the environment. It's a very formal guy with bow ties and stuff like that. But it's a well-run hospital. I enjoyed my stay there.
You're on locums now in Tennessee, correct? That's
Well,
your.
now I have a permanent job. I'm
Okay,
on the
it's permanent.
faculty.
Okay. It's no longer locums.
Right. That's what I was saying before. The locums let me interview for these permanent jobs. And
Oh,
then I
okay.
finally actually found one that's like, hey, this is like a locums job. This is great.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's an excellent benefit to be able to work. You're thinking about taking the job. Well, do a locum, see if I like it.
Right. They call that locums to perm.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah, that's a nice concept. Um, but yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. The financial benefits as a resident were tremendous. I mean, it doubled my salary uh, just working 1 or 2 nights. And if you get a good, as an ER physician, if you get a good slow hospital, you'd get a full night's sleep at that locum job. It wasn't as if you were up all night, and most like ERs
right.
are like that. But there are some rural ERs that were just fantastic to get a good night's sleep.
I learned so much in my ER year, casting fractures and removing foreign bodies from eyes, delivering babies.
Yeah, I enjoyed that part of it. I enjoyed that part of it. It was a multiplicity of pathology that you see that you're
Yes.
not normally equipped with. And as a locums, as you know, you're the man. I mean, you're the man in a small ER. You've got to handle it or
Yes.
transfer, of course.
I'll tell you one story. So I did work in this small ER. There were 2 beds in the ER, 2 nurses and one doctor, me. So one sleepy Saturday, it was about 10 a.m. The nurses came to get me. I was, in the back room resting. And they said, there's a patient coming. I said, what do you mean? And I said, come outside. So I said, what are we going to do outside? So we go outside, and the hospital was set back from the road. We look out. Somebody had driven their car into the telephone pole in front of the hospital.
Wow.
So I said, well, they're not going to bring him in here, are they? I mean, I did 1 year of medical internship. We're not a trauma center. I don't
Yeah,
know what's going on in there. I said, they're not going to bring him in here. And they said, well, of course they are. They're already here. So they bring in these three people, with fractured this and fractured that and moaning. And it's like, oh my God. So I just went into sort of a stabilization, mode.
right,
And told the nurses, you got to call all the all the faculty here of the
right.
ER, get those people in here to take care of these
Yeah,
sick patients. I don't know what to do with them.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes you're faced with that, but that's a rarity. It's a most small
Only
ERs.
happened once. Yeah, it only
Yeah,
happened
most
once.
small
But
ERs. It's very restful, and you meet some staff and you handle problems you don't normally handle. I love that. That really stimulated my interest in ER.
well,
Uh,
whole
yeah,
career.
yeah. Well,
How many years did you work ER?
oh, about 15 years, 15 to 18 years. But like you said, I would work a shift or two at a hospital, like it, and then apply. Or work there permanently for a while. Of course, ER is different than neurology. It's more of a transient field. You don't
Right.
get established, and couple of years you have to move on. That's the nature of ER. They change groups. Now, when I've been
Yes.
away, I don't know. They used to have groups like Kaiser that staffed a lot of ERs, but I don't know if they're still around. But they're
Oh yeah, it's still happening. In fact, in my hospital now, I heard, oh yeah, all the ER docs are going to change. We got a new a
yeah,
new staffing group.
that's still happening.
Still happening.
Wow.
And let me tell you, so one of the reasons I wrote the book was to help physicians who might be considering locum tenens, but don't know that much about it. I was at the American College of Physicians meeting last spring in Philadelphia, and I was at the Comp Health booth, and I gave away a lot of my books to people who were interested in thinking about it. One guy asked me, he said, do I need a special license to work locum tenens?
Right.
It's like, well, of course you need your medical license, but there's no locum tenens license.
No.
But it reinforced to me that how the details of what locum tenens is, it's still a big mystery for a lot of people, and there was a need for the book.
Well, it fills a vital need for hospitals when they need a physician who can't commit permanently. It fills a need.
Well,
Uh,
recruiting these days takes forever. If you're a practice or you're a hospital, say, okay, we need another neurologist. It can be a year before they locate someone, the person gets a state license, then they have to move there, they have to get hospital credentialing, which takes at least a month, if not 2 or 3, and the credentialing process can't start until the licensing is complete. And the licensing, it took me 7 months to get a Tennessee license. So it was almost a year from the time that I signed on the dotted line. I think that was March. I didn't start practice till January. So that would have been an opening for a different locums guy to come in and have, 9 months of work.
well, I think I was a typical doctor. I was exposed to locums as a resident. Do you find that most of the people you talk to, that's the case, where they get oriented to locums during residency?
Actually, most locum doctors never tried it until they were ready to retire.
Oh, really? Well,
Most of
that's
them
interesting.
the residents are about 20%. It's mostly the older guys that do it.
Really? Wow. Yeah, I was supposed to during residency, and I just tried it and loved it. Loved it, and uh, who knows? Uh,
So
Go ahead.
I was just going to tell you, to help out people who are interested in the topic, I put on YouTube, I did a 3 to 5 minute review of each chapter of the book on YouTube. You got to hunt for them. Just put in Wilner and Locum Tenens or Locum Tenens
I'm going to do that
and
right now, Andrew, so I can show the
late
audience.
career.
The
And
is it in Amazon?
yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. I'm sure I'll be able to get that. Let me get it on Amazon. If anyone's interested, they can pick up the book.
It's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and on my website, which is andrewwilner.com. www.andrewwilner.com. You can buy it direct from the publisher at a discount if you
Oh,
click
okay.
through my website. But otherwise, it's a Kindle book, it's an Amazon paperback, it's a hardback, it's a Barnes and Noble book, it's ebook, it's whatever kind of book you
Okay.
want.
Well, yeah, maybe you can take us through this book here. I got it here. And it's on Amazon. I'll reshare the screen. Okay, the Locum Tenens Life.
Oh, there it is. Great.
Okay, there
Good
you go.
job.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, let's see. We can take a look inside here, I believe. Okay, you got some.
I got some nice quotes.
These are
People that read it.
mostly physicians that. People that read it. Okay.
People have read, mostly physicians, although I got a lady there, that Kathy Matska, the second one. She's actually a credentialing specialist.
Oh, okay.
And I had her help me with some of the ins and outs about hospital credentialing, how to facilitate your credentialing so it gets done more quickly. I think almost everybody else is probably a physician who read the book, and some of them even contributed to the book, some of their stories. Others, like Tiago here, Tiago Villanueva, he's a locum tenens physician in Portugal.
Oh, okay.
And I've done medical missions with Tiago. That's how I know him. And he read the book. He thought it was really very, very helpful.
Oh, okay.
And we talked about finance. Laura Clifford, CPA. I think it's really important if you want to do locums. Now you're your own boss. You're self-employed. You got to have a experienced CPA who understands locum tenens, what that is. You got to file tax returns in different states if you work in different states. So, your regular, H&R Block is not going to cut it. You want to find a CPA who knows how to deal with physicians, and particularly locum tenens.
That's an important point.
She's actually the one I use. I recommend her, and there are others that I recommend. I encourage people to contact me, by the way, on my website, which is just my name, andrewwilner.com.
Let me go there. Let me take the people there. Hold on.
Oh, that's great.
Okay. What is it? andrewwilner.com?
Yep.
It's a good domain name.
Yeah, luckily nobody else. I set up this website just last year, and nobody else. I guess there aren't too many Andrew Wilners out there.
Okay. Let me share this here. Okay, there we go.
There we go. Okay, so that's where you want to go for a 15% discount, and anything you want to know about the book. I mentioned earlier that there are videos for each chapter. You see the video tab up there. If you click on any of those links.
Oh, excellent. I mean, I tell you, publishing has changed. Video of chapters. Wow. We're treating the reader too good.
You don't even have to read the book.
Wow.
It's like, if you want to watch, you could save $25.
Wow. You actually made videos for each chapter.
Yep.
Wow. That's you overdid it there, Andrew.
It was actually a lot of work. It was a lot of work.
This is because I don't think people do that normally.
All right, so there I am. That's
great.
I'm in my office.
That's great. Yeah, wow, publishing has changed. Andrew, as far as credentialing, is it with the age of computers, because I worked in the age with no computers and paper credentialing. Is that sped up a lot, credentialing?
Absolutely not.
Not?
The hospital credential, the only way it's helped is that, I keep all of my documents, in Dropbox. So I have a PDF of everything, and you can email them. But once they get to the license bureau or the hospital, I think they're doing it the same way they did it 50 years ago. Okay. There's no centralized place where things can get double checked or stored. It just drags on forever. I had a question about the Tennessee license application, which was not very transparent. So I sent an email to the board. I got a response 1 month later. In response to your inquiry, I mean, who responds to emails a month later? I feel bad if it's not within 24 hours if somebody sends me an email.
Are you kidding? If I don't hear within the hour, with social media nowadays, normally you hear back quickly, like in what we're doing, with video and medicine and stuff. If I talk to a party I think I want an answer from, if I don't get an answer almost momentarily, I move on to the next project or whatever.
And the problem with the licensing people is that they're beholden to no one. You, as a physician, you are not entitled to a license. You would think you are. I have the proper credentials. I have the right to a license, but you don't. The medical board is going to grant you at their discretion a license or not, even if you are fully qualified.
Right.
So you can't push them. And the hospital, nobody can push them. They just do what they want to do.
Hospital administration, I don't know what's going to affect them, because when I'm admitted to the hospital now, when I go in, I see areas where computerization has not even touched, and it's slow, cumbersome, and you don't know, when it's going to happen. When will the age of computerization come to medical administration?
They got a long, I remember I had a hospital admission. It was a number of years ago. So they got the computer in the ER, I put in all my demographics. I got admitted to the ward. Nurse comes with her computer. I said, I just put all this in the computer. Oh, we don't use that computer downstairs.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, that's a larger question, Andrew, of why patients' records aren't stored in a central place. I mean, the computers and big data is supposed to benefit medicine, but America lost its big opportunity to utilize big data by having all these different platforms. But that's an issue for another show.
We can do another webinar on that.
Yeah, on when it's going to happen.
But that does bring up another beauty of locum tenens. And as a locum tenens doc, you show up, you take care of your patients, you write your note, you go home, you get paid. All the inefficiencies, the chaos, the politics of wherever you are.
Yeah, that's a positive.
Not your problem.
That's a positive.
It's like you just smile. Oh yeah, they hired this one, they fired that one. This one's indicted. It's like, it's okay. Just give me my paycheck. Let me take care of the patients. I'll be here another 3 weeks.
Yeah, can you touch on the issue of malpractice and locum tenens?
Right. So it's very important for guys like you and me, say, that have a regular job and you want to do locums on the side. If you do that, the malpractice that you have for your regular job is not sufficient. So you have to get additional malpractice for the locums. If you work through a staffing agency, they will automatically do that. You just make sure you get that little piece of paper. But if you work out some deal on your own to cover some dinky hospital 30 minutes down the road, either they have to get it for you, or you got to buy your own. So don't assume, well, I'm already insured by, my regular job. It does not cover it because you're doing something different.
Right. That happened to me on a few occasions. You have to be aware. You have to be covered. And it's your responsibility to make sure that you're covered.
Yep.
Because no one's going to watch out for you. You got to watch out for yourself.
Yes, and that's another reason I wrote the book. There's a lot of little things you need to know, and I've put all the practical ones that I could think of in the book, so that none of these things will come as a surprise.
Okay.
It's really a handbook.
Very good. Okay, Andrew, I think we pretty well covered that, and we'll chat later, and we'll post this on my channel, and you're certainly welcome to post it on your channel.
Yeah, I'll share it for sure.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up, and stick around, Andrew. We'll chat, okay?
Thanks very much, John. It's been a pleasure speaking with you again.
Okay, thank you.